What's up guys, it's Will back again, and today's review is the 2006 thriller film Children of Men. First requested to me by Brandon Gilligan, directed and co-written by Alfonso Cuarón, and based on the 1992 novel of the same name, Children of Men takes place in dystopian 2027 Britain, where humans have lost the ability to create new life. Women have gone infertile, and it's been almost 2 decades since the last child was born, while miraculously a young woman named Key turns out to be pregnant, and a militia group called the Fishes attempts to transport her to safety, where she can have her child and hopefully provide a glimmer of hope and change for mankind that seems to be at a turning point of total chaos. As war and destruction engulf the earth, Key and a man named Theo, played by Clive Owen, attempt to get Key to safety and allow her to give birth to the first child in roughly 2 decades. Alright, so there's probably a little more to the plot than I just described there, but I tried to be concise and avoid overly boring you with the details, which I can tend to do sometimes, I can admit that. But regardless, this was a request that I basically knew nothing about. This is not a film I had even heard of, and it's certainly not a film I had ever seen any parts of before. And since I knew nothing about it, I thought, let's not watch a trailer. Let's go in blind and just see what happens with this one. Well, I don't think that I would say that I love this film, but I thought it was pretty good, and it's certainly worth a watch if you're into dystopian future-style movies. Children of Men is certainly a brutal film, very brutal in fact. And in that way, it kind of reminded me of The Road, a film that I reviewed a while back that's maybe the darkest film I've ever watched. One of them at the very least. So obviously, yeah, it should be noted that Children of Men is a very dark film. So dark, in fact, you'll likely be blown away by just how different this world feels than our own. I mean, there's some terrible things that happen in our world every day, but this dystopian future is not a future you want to live in. It's chaotic, it's violent, it's often primal and regressive, and it's full of depth and despair at pretty much every single turn. That's actually one of the things I liked about the film though. Its sense of atmosphere is very, very immersive. Because I did actually feel like I was living in this awful future, and it did not feel good in any way, shape, or form. So there's not much beauty, so to speak, but I will say that the film is shot beautifully. Honestly though, I probably wouldn't even use the word beautiful, because nothing about this movie is beautiful, but it does look beautiful in the sense that it's beautifully awful and dark, and allows you to really feel like this world is real. The shots and the scenery allow you to feel like you're not even watching a movie, but rather a glimpse into a real future where something has gone horribly, horribly wrong, and the world has deteriorated in every way imaginable. I think Children of Men really excels visually in its camera work, generally speaking, but more specifically, it really nails the action parts. Anytime Theo and Key face violent adversity, they have to traverse their way through some of the most rundown and brutal environments you could imagine. And the way these high energy scenes are filmed is pretty remarkable. These long takes where things are exploding and there's gunfire everywhere, and I found myself continually impressed at just how real the whole movie felt. That said, despite how gritty and how real this dystopian future felt, I did find myself a little less engaged than I wanted to be for stretches of time. I felt that I could feel the stakes, and I could feel how important this mission was, not just for the main characters, but for the world as a whole, but I often found myself not fully invested in these characters. I don't think the performances were bad or anything. That didn't really affect my judgment of anything. I just kind of felt like the characters weren't fully realized and fully developed as a whole. Like I didn't really understand them, and because of that I couldn't fully invest in them. And I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people out there who love this film and defend its approach to its characters because they'll argue that there's just not enough time to fully develop them because they're on the run so much. And Dunkirk did that pretty well, so I can kind of see how that works. And I understand this argument, but still, it's very rare to have a film that doesn't fully develop and progress its characters and have it succeed at a super high level. I think Children of Men mostly pulls it off, but it doesn't always pull it off, and that's slightly problematic in a film that is fairly heavily built around a couple main characters. But I do think the film is also heavily built around the atmosphere and the dystopian setting in which the story takes place. I've already mentioned how great the sense of atmosphere is, but I think there's a lot of great themes at play here as well. This is definitely a film that gives you a lot to think about, and it provides a lot of interesting commentary about human nature, survival, and the things we take for granted in our day-to-day lives. And also, of course, the importance of our youth and how they at times help us retain our humanity. In my opinion, the film really tries to drive home the point that when humans are left to their own devices, and responsibility is completely thrown out the window considering kids are no longer a factor here, we just become destructive. Once we become destructive, it becomes contagious, and eventually things only worsen and spiral out of control without some sort of light to provide a feeling of hope. And without that, we just fall into an endless cycle of violence and despair. I think that if you're looking for a movie that has a lot of interesting concepts and themes like I just mentioned, then Children of Men is probably a very good choice. But while it has a lot of important messages to drive home, I also found the film to feel a little bit dated as well. There's certain scenes, certain attempts at humor, and some of the writing that I just felt didn't quite hold up for me roughly 12 years later. I mean, not every film could hold up super well considering, cinema is always evolving and changing over time. But I can't say it's not a factor either, considering I'd have to be recommending this movie to you in 2018, so that's definitely a factor. The final point I want to make though, and I think this is an important one to make, is that Children of Men does end well. I think that the final act does a good job making me feel the friendship and the bond between Theo and Key. I do chalk a decent amount of this up to the performances of Clive Owen and Clare-Hope Ashitey, whose name I hope I'm pronouncing correctly, because they both do a very nice job in this film, especially in the closing minutes. But generally, yeah, I think it ends well. It does help that a movie ends strong. It's not going to be an ending that everyone loves, I will say that, but I thought it fit the tone of the story pretty nicely. As for the pros cons, I thought Children of Men had an excellent sense of atmosphere, really nice cinematography and action, lots of thought-provoking themes, and a strong ending. As for the cons, I thought the film occasionally lacked engagement and character development, and it felt a little bit dated as well. Overall though, I'm going to give Children of Men an 8 out of 10, and recommend you check it out if you're looking for a well-done thriller film. This is a very dark movie like I mentioned, but gives you lots to think about. So have you guys seen Children of Men yet? What did you think of it? And if not, let me know why not. And also let me know your favorite film from the 2000s. It can be any genre, just pick your favorite. I'll drop mine in a comment below. And thanks for watching, and as always, thank you for your continued support. It's always appreciated. Regardless, this is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next review.